Oh boy, this one's gonna be a bit of a doozy because today we're getting political as we discuss and review The Hunt, a horror thriller film originally scheduled for release in September 2019 but got pushed back to March of this year. I know politics is a very touchy subject to navigate, especially these days, but I will be doing my best to stay objective on that subject, and only that subject. Because obviously, I'm gonna give my honest thoughts and opinions on the film. If you'd like to skip the plot overview and go straight into my spoiler-free thoughts, you can skip to this timestamp in the video. So with that said, let's get hunting and get right into it. The movie begins with a businesswoman texting in a group chat of liberal elites talking about an upcoming event hunting who they refer to as deplorables. An unknown amount of time in the future, we see said group of elites on a private plane, one of them being a mega douche to the stewardess over caviar or some shit. A redneck guy wakes up from the back of the plane and the elites are very unhappy, one of them stabbing the man in the neck with a pen, but the others complain that he started too early, whatever that means. As the redneck is dying, the businesswoman comes and stabs him in the eye with her stiletto, and his body is dragged back to the rear of the plane where other people are lying unconscious. Later, those unconscious people wake up in the woods with gags locked around their heads near a field with a large crate in the middle. Inside the crate is a pig wearing clothes along with a bunch of weapons. The blonde girl we've been sort of following also finds the key to take the gags off just in time for gunshots to be fired from an unseen foe, and she gets shot in the head. Another guy gets killed, and a girl falls into a hidden pit of spikes, and a man manages to pull her out, but he steps on a landmine, blowing him up and sending the girl's top half back into the spike pit. And somehow she's still barely alive for just a bit longer, which is kind of funny in a really twisted way, like someone put this poor girl out of her misery already. A group of 4 tries to climb a nearby fence, but a guy is shot by an arrow, then has a grenade thrown at him, then a second grenade when the person off screen realizes they forgot to pull the pin. Whoopsie. The other 3 make it over the fence and head down the road to find a convenience store with the owners, a man and wife, standing behind the counter and greeting them, seeming like very nice folks. One of the men from the group asks where they are, and the owners inform them that they are in Arkansas. The man uses their phone to call the police, who say they are on their way, but something seems a bit off. Suddenly, the deplorable woman starts choking on a poisoned donut she's picked up off the shelf to eat, and the owners unleash tear gas and shoot the other 2. This is what you get for not paying for something before you open it and eat it. Don't do that shit. The owners hear over the radio that another of the deplorables named Crystal is headed towards the convenience store, so they drag the bodies to the back room to hide them and quickly clean up the mess. We get a short bit with the owners. The wife feels a bit guilty after seeing a wedding ring on one of the dead man's hands, but then immediately afterwards yells at her husband for drinking a sugary drink because it's unhealthy. I don't know how people don't realize this is satire. I mean, come on. Crystal comes in and casually asks to buy some cigarettes, which they give her, and she pays for with money hidden in her shoe. And she is told, like the previous folks, that they are in Arkansas. But once she gets her change, she smashes the woman's face into the counter, saying that in Arkansas, cigarettes are only $6 and she was given incorrect change. So they done fucked up and blown their cover. Crystal grabs a gun hidden behind the counter and kills the owners, then goes outside to find a truck with a fake license plate with a real, I think, Croatian license plate underneath, and a tripwire attached to a bomb. After taking the radio from inside the store, she hunkers down with the gun nearby to keep tabs on the elites. A short while later, a flying drone approaches and gets shot down by another deplorable named Gary. Crystal warns him about the bomb on the truck but scolds him for shooting down the drone, since now the elites have been alerted to their location. They walk along some nearby train tracks with Gary unsuccessfully trying to make small talk, which Crystal is clearly not up for, until a train comes along and they jump into a cargo car. Inside, they find a family of foreign immigrants who Gary immediately assumes is a bunch of fake crisis actors, in his words. But before he can kill them, the train is stopped by the local military at a refugee camp. Out of earshot of the soldiers, one of the immigrants speaks perfect English with an American accent and taunts Gary, admitting he is a liberal elite, but the military and other immigrants he was with are real, saying he's been embedded with the group for weeks. He offers to give Gary and Crystal a head start if they keep quiet to the military, but an enraged Gary pulls a grenade and shoves it down the guy's pants, causing him to be blown to bits, and Gary is dragged away. The soldiers then question Crystal and ask if she's being hunted, saying they found another of the deplorables named Dawn who claimed the same thing. The two are left to get food and hang out at the camp when a car with American flags on the front pulls up with a man claiming to be from the US Embassy. So he takes them away under the pretense of bringing them to safety. As he is driving, he goes on about how terrible the hunt is and incessantly questions why they think they're being hunted. So Crystal tosses him out of the car and runs him over, having figured out he was lying. They stop the car and open the trunk to find Gary dead inside, a box labeled bribe money for no reason other than comedic effect, and a map of the area. Dawn and Crystal begin to actually surmise why they were chosen to be hunted, and the latter tells a story her mother had told her about a box turtle and a jackrabbit. It's mostly the same as the fable of the tortoise and the hare, with the hare being really fast and arrogant until one day the tortoise challenges him to a race. The hare takes off easily and speeding through the race, so confident he's going to win, he stops shortly before the finish line to take a nap. But he sleeps too long and ends up losing. However, Crystal's story goes a bit further, with the jackrabbit going to the box turtle's home later that night and killing the box turtle's wife and children right in front of him. Because, as she puts it, the jackrabbit always wins. Dawn is just as confused as I am and wondering what that has to do with anything, but we're moving on. As it gets dark, the remaining elites are hiding out at their base by the starting field, wondering where the driver guy is. One of them steps out to pee, the same one that was being an asshole to the stewardess on the plane, but gets ambushed and killed by Crystal and Dawn. But mostly Crystal, let's be honest, who sneaks into the base and kills everyone. A voice over the radio calls for Dawn, asking if he's killed Crystal yet, causing them to turn on each other, and she kills him. We then get a flashback to 1 year prior, after the businesswoman, whose name we've now learned is Athena, got her group text we saw at the beginning discussing the hunt leaked. She and the co-workers she was texting with are fired because even though it was a joke at the time, it damaged the company's image and sparked a conspiracy theory dubbed Manorgate that many conservatives picked up and discussed on podcasts, forums, and blogs. Months afterwards, Athena and her former co-workers are training and planning a real hunt and choosing who to include from those who posted about Manorgate and insulted Athena, finding a particularly nasty comment from Crystal, so Athena demands she be included. Back in the present, Crystal arrives at Athena's mansion and she's told over an intercom that she must leave her gun in the mailbox or she'll be blown up by explosives buried below where she is standing. So she does as she's told and goes inside to find Athena making a grilled cheese sandwich. She asks Crystal if she knows who she is, to which she responds no. Athena doesn't believe her and explains that the group text that got leaked was a joke, and it was so absurd for people to think she would really hunt other human beings. So her solution was to actually hunt people. She spouts on how she's learned Crystal's backstory, about how terrible her life has been, but Crystal says she's got the wrong person, explaining there's another girl in her town with the same first and last name who probably left the hateful comment. Athena still doesn't believe her and they fight around the house, stabbing each other a bunch. As they're both laying on the floor, exhausted and dying, Athena asks Crystal if she really left that comment about her, and Crystal repeats that it was not her. Athena simply says, "Oops," and dies, just before a rabbit comes through the open door. Crystal smiles as she gets up and cauterizes her wounds with a handheld blowtorch, eats Athena's grilled cheese sandwich, takes her champagne and puts on a fancy dress from her closet, then takes the private jet and shares some caviar with the stewardess. The tagline for The Hunt is, "The most talked about movie of the year is one that no one's actually seen," along with a prominent display of various negative remarks right on the movie poster. This is because, before its original release in September of last year, which was delayed due to 2 mass shootings in Dayton and El Paso, there was quite a lot of controversy surrounding this film because many people on both sides of the political aisle, but the majority seemed to be on the conservative camp, including President Trump, who only saw the premise of liberal elites hunting so-called deplorables and immediately developed whatever narrative they saw fit based on their misinterpreted perceptions, despite never looking deeper into this movie or even waiting to see it for themselves to find out what it's really like. Because if they had, it would be glaringly obvious that not only is The Hunt a clear satire, but the liberals are the bad guys. Which should be obvious because they're literally hunting people for fun. Of course they aren't the protagonists. There isn't some blurred line of who is good and who is evil. No, just a bunch of assholes killing people because they feel like it. Similar in a sense to the Belko Experiment, the Hunger Games, or the entire Purge franchise, which also gets very political. It's clearly established who is in the wrong here. The Hunt doesn't even take a solid stance politically because there's jokes aimed at both sides of the spectrum. So no matter who you are, there will likely be jokes in favor of your views and jokes at the expense of your views. They aren't actively trying to preach one side over the other or push some sort of agenda because it calls out extremist attitudes from both sides. That's why it's so frustrating that people were so quick to react negatively at just an initial glance of the film for the sake of being angry, because there is still plenty to legitimately criticize once you get past all the premature nonsense. The Hunt, while still being relatively entertaining, isn't made fantastically. It actually had kind of a lower budget and a shorter runtime compared to most other Hollywood films, and there are times when it really shows. The gore effects aren't nearly as good as what I've come to expect from Blumhouse, especially since this was the second Blumhouse film I had seen in the same night immediately after The Invisible Man, which was a far superior film compared to this, and I'll have a review for that posted at a later time. But The Hunt does have a decent shock factor and doesn't really use violence for the sake of being violent, although there is quite a lot of it. It's a very action-y type movie, but it's done fairly well. It's not constant, so you have time to breathe and process what's happening, so it works most of the time. Character development is mainly non-existent. Most characters, we don't even learn their names beyond nicknames based on the most basic traits like Yoga Pants and Staten Island, and others who are essentially just cannon fodder, which isn't always a bad thing, but even those who we do spend a significant amount of time with, we don't learn much about them, aside from a couple stereotypical personality traits. Though that's likely more to contribute to the satirical nature of the film, but by the end of it, it starts to feel rather rushed without a more thorough explanation of the themes it's trying to portray. The only exception is Betty Gilpin as Crystal, who, despite being an absolute hard ass, is a very likable character and it's easy to root for her. I already liked Betty Gilpin in the Netflix series Glow, which I highly recommend, so she helped make what would have been a very mediocre film just a bit better. If it wasn't for the stupid and unnecessary controversy last year, this movie would have been released without much attention and probably not a lot of success, honestly. It got so much more attention than it would have otherwise received because people took it way too seriously and started all this drama before the film was even released. So then once it did come out, many who did flock to the theaters before they got shut down thanks to the pandemic was in part due to curiosity and wanting to see what all the fuss was about. It's just a fun, silly, violent film with a message to modern America to get our shit in order and come together, or people will start going off the deep end and doing something drastic, more or less. It's definitely not a film that will suit everyone's taste, but there are movies that try to be more artsy, and then there are those like The Hunt that try to be more fun. And I personally find it at least somewhat entertaining and enjoyable. So because of this, I'm giving The Hunt my personal score of 6 out of 10. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you have any movies you'd like me to review and discuss in the future. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you have not already. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye!